Hi, my name is Mrs. Greb, and I'm a teacher with the Gulfport School District. This is a presentation about game design. It's really just an introduction to creating games, and it's suitable for students grades 3 and up. So during this presentation, I'm going to explain what game design is. I'll explain how the engineering design process is used in game design. I'll explain what makes a good game. And finally, I'm going to show you how to use the engineering design process to get started making games in Scratch. So what is game design? To answer this question, I reference the book, The Art of Game Design by Jesse Schell. He says game design is the act of deciding what a game should be. To decide what a game is, you must make lots of decisions. So game design is simply decision making. You can actually design a game in your head, although you may want to write it down. And if you write your ideas down, it will be easier to share with other people so they can help you build your game. Consider starting a journal for ideas. Take it wherever you go so you can jot down anything that inspires you. Analyze the world around you. How do things function? Think about what you've learned in your science, language, and social studies classes. How do things work? Also, play other games and use your journal to remember what you liked and disliked about those games. There is inspiration for game design all around you. This is where an original game idea will come from. So, since there is so much decision making going on in game design, we are going to use the engineering design process. Engineers design, build, and test things, and they are excellent thinkers. Engineers find out what people want or need and then design and build products they think people will like. So as a game engineer, you have 5 steps to problem solving. I've added a step to the engineering design process because in Scratch, you share your game with the Scratch community so that everyone can see your work. Other users can see your work and provide feedback through comments. Let's look at step 1 to ask, what is the problem? What problem are we trying to solve? Well, our problem is we would like to make a game in Scratch, but we don't know what to do or how to get started. So we're going to break this problem down into smaller, more manageable chunks. Starting with step 2, imagine. So what are some solutions to your problem of wanting to create a game in Scratch? This is where your journal is going to come in handy. Start keeping a journal with you wherever you go. Jot down ideas, experiences, things that you have observed, maybe even your dreams. You could also put in your journal your favorite movies and your favorite books. Turning movies and stories into games is an excellent solution to your problem of designing a game in Scratch. So after step 2, we're going to plan it out. So use your journal, pick an idea, and start building your game. In Scratch, you're going to continually play test your game to test all of the elements and make sure that everything is working. I've added this step to the engineering design process just to remind you that you can share your games in Scratch. When you share, you'll add instructions for people to follow when they're playing your game. So you've asked the question, you've imagined, you planned it out, you created your game, you shared it within the Scratch community, and you'll continually make improvements. What works? What doesn't work? Maybe people in the share community have left you a message to help you make your game better. And you'll modify your design to keep improving, and then you'll test it out again. So now let's talk about what makes a good game. And to answer this question, I referenced a book called Game Design Workshop by Tracy Fullerton. In her book, she talks about formal and dramatic elements that make up a game. And we're going to talk about those elements right now. Formal elements make up the essence or the needed qualities of games. They provide the structure and the form which can help a beginning designer like you make choices in your design process and understand problems that arise in the playtesting process. You must understand these elements so that you can experiment with alternatives, with other ideas. The first formal element is players. Players are the voluntary participants who both partake in and consumes the entertainment of your game. To become a player, one must voluntarily accept the rules and the constraints of the game. Goals and objectives. These are what the players are trying to achieve. They're specific goals for the players. Every game challenges the players to achieve some kind of goal, whether it is winning a race, conquering an enemy, beating a high score, or simply surviving for as long as they can. Most games have lots of small goals too, such as unlocking doors to a new level or winning a vehicle or new skills. A major goal is winning the game. A minor goal would be to get a bonus or some sort of award. Many games' objective is simply to achieve high score. Procedures provide a set of controls for playing the game. Procedures are the actions or methods of how the game is allowed under the rules. They guide player behavior. So as I mentioned, rules. Rules are also a formal element of games. They guide the player on how the game should be played. The rules of the game tell players what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. Resources. Resources can help the players achieve their goals, and sometimes they're made scarce in the game to make it a little more fun, such as objects, stars, coins, something that can boost the health of the player or provide a key to unlock a door. On a board game, for example, the resources are the game pieces, the game board, and the cards. Conflict is the relationship between the goals and objectives of the players and the rules that they must follow and the procedures that they must follow. So what is the conflict between the rules and the objectives of the game? Boundaries. In a game, you're within some sort of world. That's the boundary of a game. A temporary world where the gamer, the player, gets to be in. So that's it for the formal elements. Next, let's talk about dramatic elements. Dramatic elements allow the player to make an emotional connection with a game, and they create meaningful play experiences for the players. Challenge, our first element. Challenge is creating a variety of levels of achievement or frustration for your player. A game is no fun if it's too easy or too hard. Many games make the challenges easy at the start while the players are learning, and then more difficult later on as the players' skills improve. Getting the difficulty level just right is the key to making a good game. Playability. A little hard to explain, but the play of your game is the free movement within the structure of your game and its rules. It lets the player have some fun with staying between achieving the goals and following the rules. The premise of your game. The premise lets your players know what to expect, what is going on in this game. It is the idea of what the whole game is all about. The story element. This is different than the premise in that it has more of a narrative quality, and a story is not in all games, but think of the elements of a story when you write a story, the beginning, middle, and end. The story in a game takes the player through your story's adventure. So now you know all the elements that make up a good game, and you know how to use the engineering design process to get started making your game. Let's tie this all together. I've created a game design planning sheet for you that you can use during step 3 of the engineering design process. This form has all of the elements that make up a good game. It includes all of the formal and dramatic elements we spoke about that make up a good game. Let's do an activity to review the engineering design process. Step 1. What is the problem? How have others approached it, and what are your constraints? This was the ask step. Step 2. What are some solutions? Brainstorm ideas and choose the best one. Imagine. Step 2. Step 3, draw out your game. Use the Scratch Game Design planning sheet to describe all of your game's elements. That was plan, step 3. Follow your plan and create something, and as you create it, keep testing it out. I just said it, create. And step 5, what worked, what didn't work, and modify your design to improve it and keep testing. That is step 5, improve. Now, remember in the engineering design process, I added a step. Since we're designing games in Scratch, Scratch has a share feature. And I'm going to move that right in between step 4 and step 5, that you'll be sharing your Scratch game with the Scratch community. So that's it for what makes a good game. Now it's time to start designing a game in Scratch. And to get started, go to scratch.mit.edu. This is a free online software for you to create games. They have lots of learning lessons for you. You can create a login, create your own account, and I would suggest that you do that so that you can keep all of your games. Please do remember your username and your password. Write it down in your journal. It's important to remember your username and your password it's hard to get your account back if you don't remember it. Also, I've put a link here to my game design plan form available to you at bit.ly/2 lowercase y, lowercase I, capital Z, capital G, lowercase a, capital T. This address is case sensitive. So in this presentation, I explained what game design is. I've explained how the engineering design process is used in game design, and I explained what makes a good game. And I also showed you how the engineering design process helps you get started making games in Scratch. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation.